Welcome, my little bookworms, to our very first episode of Book Club Fridays. In these episodes, we will dive into the latest, greatest, and not so hot books that I have read or listened to lately. I'm also going to share my journey as a writer and the goals of becoming published, whether that is traditionally or self-published. We will just have to wait and see. As we dive in to these books, we're going to explore the ins and outs of the characters, the authors, what we love and hate about each read that crosses our path. And I have to be honest, when I choose books to read, it's an extremely intuitive process. I'm usually drawn to a certain book at a specific time for a reason, and I've really learned to trust that. So sometimes when I feel myself drawn to a book, it might be something way off base to where I feel like I am at that point in time. But there is a message within those pages that I am meant to hear. So when I buy a book, I might immediately crack the spine, or it could sit on my TBR for days, months, or years. With this being our first Book Club Friday episode, I wanted to give you a sense of the books that I love. And today we are going to be recapping some of my favorite memoirs from the past year. I have been on a memoir kick for about probably 9 months now. And I've never really been a memoir reader before, but for whatever reason, I started listening to them on Spotify. I have not read any of these books, but I have listened to all of them. And I also feel like that makes it even more special because you are hearing the story from the author's perspective. You're hearing it in their voice. And I think it just makes their story more personable and relatable and I don't know, just more fun to listen to. So this time we're diving into memoirs. Next time we'll probably start to incorporate some romance and then some spirituality and self-development books. Cool? Cool. All right, let's go. First up, the fuckboy everyone loves to hate, the comedian of his generation, Matt Rife. And I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I have never once watched a single one of his comedy specials. So why I felt called to listen to his memoir, I will never know. But I am so grateful that I did. Matt Rife, Memoir, Your Mom's Gonna Love Me. And like I said, I have never watched any of his comedy specials. And outside of seeing a few clips on Instagram, I didn't know much about Matt. But as I've been memoir binging, that is what is coming up on my algorithm on Spotify. And sure enough, Matt Rife's Your Mom's Gonna Love Me made it to the top of the list. And I'm honestly still unsure why I was so intrigued by this book. I truly have no idea, but I'm so grateful that I did. He is one of the youngest comedians to blow up before 30, and he's also from rural America, like yours truly. So I don't know. Maybe I just was like, okay, I feel like I could relate to this. Somebody coming from the middle of a cornfield and basically going viral on TikTok and living out their biggest dreams. Sounds fantastic. Can we like make that happen here with this? I would not say no. But anyways, prior to diving into this audiobook, I had decided to take a social media detox from Thanksgiving to New Year's. And I will unpack this experience in another episode because it was so profound to getting me right here in this seat in front of this camera with this microphone in my hand. And I am so fucking grateful that I gave that gift to myself. But long story short, right here, right now, social media was messing with my mental health and I needed space. So I decided to take a break and I stopped. Yeah, it was on Thanksgiving Day. I was going to go Thanksgiving Day to New Year's Day. And in that process, in that period of time, was when I listened to Your Mom's Gonna Love Me. And I was feeling so lost, unsure about my path, my career, whether this pursuit of whatever the fuck I was pursuing was even worth it. And I genuinely felt really inspired just hearing a story about somebody else that was also pursuing a dream that they really had no idea if it was going to come true. And so as I'm cooking dinner, driving, listening to this young man who is barely 30 talk about a dream he had as a kid, a dream he relentlessly chased, I was like, okay, I can get behind this. And in between the pages of this book, in between hearing the stories of him continually choosing to go after what he wanted and not give up no matter what got in his way or who told him that he couldn't get there, he continued to fight for it. I just really felt inspired. I really felt like, okay, I can fucking do this. Stop making excuses for yourself, Paige. Like, come on. And as I'm listening to the story, again, it was very well written, which is very important to me. And also the way that he spoke in the audio was also very well. Sometimes I feel like that can also get lost in translation. So he did a great job on both of those things. And as I was listening to this book is when the idea of this podcast literally dropped into my brain. It literally dropped into my brain. I was standing in my kitchen and I was like, what is the dream for me? And it was like using your voice, sharing your story, making an impact. And this wasn't because Matt Rife said something extremely profound. I mean, no offense, Matthew. I genuinely enjoyed the book, but that's not the point. The point was I needed to hear his story so that I could reflect on my own without the noise of social media telling me what I should and shouldn't do and who I should and shouldn't be and how I should do it. It was just Matt's voice and my own thoughts, and my intuition, for whatever reason, decided that moment was the moment that it was going to speak up. And it was going to tell me and remind me, hey, you have a story to share too. Like, let's do it. Let's get on it. And as he was sharing more about his past and his childhood and all of the things that he went through, I mean, he does it with humor. Of course, he's a comedian. Duh. So as Matt is talking about how humor was his childhood coping mechanism, like, same. It's still my coping mechanism as an adult. But we're working on it. We're getting there. And how he used to try to be the funny guy so that he could fly under the radar. And when he was telling the story, when he was sharing this about himself and his past, I had this flashback to when I was a kid. And it was so funny because having the name Paige was something that I hated when I was little. And I hated it because it was absolute gold mine for elementary school bullies or boys who thought you were cute. And it wasn't cute to be bullied by a boy who thought you were cute. And it's still not, just letting you know. But I heard it all. Turn the page, Paige. Hey, chapter. Or hey, book. Whatever it was. I don't remember my name really bothering me. But I do remember that full body cringe when people would say it. So then I started to like resent my name for it. And then again, like Matthew shared in his book, it was like, all right, we're going to play the game. We're going to beat them to the punch. And so I would, jump in before they could. Yeah, I know. Turn the page, Paige. My middle name is Chapter, obviously. Oh, wow. Hey, book. So creative. And then, as I'm thinking about this little me in an elementary school classroom, lightning fucking struck. Turn the page. Turn the page. And it was like, oh my gosh, a podcast about my life, about books, about astrology, about how stories are reflections of who we are and how they connect us, and how we can take what the world used to use to tear us down and turn it into what makes us fucking interesting. And it was just like this complete, like, mind-blowing moment. And I literally heard the words, "This is it. This is it." And here we are. I cannot tell you how that moment felt, because it literally sank into my core in such a deep way that I felt completely at peace. And that sounds so weird, but it was just like, okay, I figured it out. Now here we go. Let's make this happen. Let's bring this into fruition. Let's once again turn the page. Let's start a new chapter, because literally it is something I have done so many times in my life. And let's do the damn thing. Let's share your story. And yeah, I'm still, when I talk about it, it just feels like a complete out of body experience. But it was something that was brought to me because I decided to listen to this random memoir on Spotify, because my intuition told me that this story had something to tell me, that this story had something to share with me. This story was going to be a way in which I could reflect on my own. So thanks, Matt. I believe wholeheartedly that in sharing your story, Matthew Stephen Rife, you sparked at least a small change in someone's life. Me, right here, this girl. And whether that was his intention or not with the book, I just believe that's the magic of storytelling. When we get vulnerable and express ourselves authentically, we inspire the most unexpected people in the most unexpected ways. And so listening to that book didn't just spark an idea. It made me laugh. It gave me a glimpse into a young comedian navigating his whirlwind career in the backwoods of the Midwest. His love for his grandpa Steve and MILFs. Quite interesting. Something that he, likes to say that he can unpack, or I'm sure somebody could psychoanalyze at some point. But yeah, I still haven't watched any of his comedy specials. I'm not sure if I ever will. But listening to his book really sparked something inside of me. And so I'm just really, really grateful for that and for that experience, and to be here and to be doing this. Our second episode of Turn the Page and our first episode of Book Club Fridays. And yeah, feels good. Feels really, really good. And it wasn't just what Matt said, but it was how it related to my life that made it meaningful. And that's what books do for me. That's what people's stories show me. That's what this podcast was born from. And that is something that I hope makes an impact on the world and can be of service to others. So now, for the nitty-gritty on the book. It was super easy to listen to. And like I said before, it was well written. So those are 2 gold stars for me. He shares his journey from small town Ohio to becoming one of the biggest names in comedy. And that, of course, the underdog story is always inspiring. He talks about his family, talks about trauma that he's been through, his success, the humiliation, and also depression that he battled during quarantine, which I feel like a lot of people can relate to. One thing that did surprise me was that he has a very love-hate relationship with social media, which honestly respect, because so do I. It is a very, very contradicting machine. And I'm still trying to find my balance with it. And I think that hearing somebody with a platform like his, with what, not necessarily saying that he owes TikTok anything, but with the success that he attained from social media, the fact that he still feels that way, again, I think was just really refreshing. So that was nice. That was a nice little surprise for me there. But one of my favorite parts was his reason for writing the book now instead of when he's older, because he said he wanted to remember the journey while it was happening rather than reflecting on it years later. And I was like, again, cool. I love that. As a writer myself, I love being so present in what I'm doing and what I'm creating. And so, yeah, hearing that from him, I thought was really, really cool, really, really great. Overall, I definitely would recommend this book. The audio is just over 5 hours long, I think, and I gave it a 4-star review. So it's up there. Go ahead, have a listen, see if it inspires something in you too. And now on to the next. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, that was cheesy. Anyways, Greenlights by the one and only Matthew McConaughey. All right, all right, all right. Okay, how was it? Great? Not great? I don't know. I'm going with it. Sorry. I couldn't resist. This book was the best in such a strange way. But I also think that Matthew McConaughey is the best in a very strange way. He has had an interesting life, and in his memoir, he shares about his family, the way that he was raised, how he had been guided by his intuition in the form of multiple wet dreams, which I still am trying to understand. That was a very interesting segment in this book, but also how he navigated the throes of Hollywood while maintaining a grounded perspective on life. And let me tell you, just the entire thing in general was so fucking interesting. And the fact that his parents were married and divorced 3 times to each other, I literally squealed out loud. I have not been married to the same man more than once, but I have been divorced twice. Divorced twice. Divorced twice. There we go. And yeah, I'm not reaching for a third, but it was very interesting to hear that about his family and his parents. And I was just kind of like, okay, cool. I can get down with this. But yeah, if something like that, going through something like that in your life doesn't set you up for a vast perspective, then I really don't know what else could. But going deeper into his story and the whole concept of the book, it was truly entertaining and intriguing to hear his philosophy on life. And who doesn't want to have Matthew McConaughey in your ear for hours? Like, it was literally like sitting down and having coffee with him and listening to him tell me about his life and his beliefs and why he approached things the way that he did. And yeah, I was just pulled in from the very beginning and enjoyed every single bit of the ride, even if it was partly floating down the Amazon. I have recommended this book to so many people, and they also devoured it. So that always brings me joy when other people enjoy a book that I enjoyed. so well. I think the audio was about 7 hours long. And Greenlights allowed me to see life from McConaughey's lens, which was a little trippy, but extremely enlightening. He went through so many things, and he was absolutely determined not to become a victim of life and to continue seeing everything that was presented to him as a green light. Even if it started as a red or a yellow, it didn't matter where it led him. He continued to believe that it was right where he was meant to be all along. And I think that that is such a profound lesson for anybody in life, because we're going to come across shit. We're going to have things happen that were like, this isn't what I wanted. This wasn't how I wanted it to play out. I wanted something different or more, or this relationship to work. And why is this door closing? And I don't understand why I'm not where I thought I should be. And it's literally about scaling it all back and just looking at every experience in life and everything that life throws at you as, okay, this is a red light, but it's a red light for a reason. This relationship ended because it ended for a reason. This is a yellow light. This is telling me to slow down, maybe course correct, so that it can lead me to the green lights in life. And his unwavering faith and respect of life itself, the appreciation for beauty in every turn, really inspired me to see the green lights in my own. And I gave this book a 5-star review. I promise that if you give it a listen, you'll be hearing his voice in your head whispering, green lights, for months afterwards. I still do. I listened to this book last fall, and I still hear his voice in my head saying, green light. And it brings me so much joy every single time that I do. So if that doesn't speak to the impact of this book, then I don't know what else to tell you. All right. And last but certainly not least, to round out our memoir episode, is Dinner for Vampires by Bethany Joy Lenz. Yes, Haley James herself. It was an absolute dream for One Tree Hill fans. I left listening to that book with such an overwhelming amount of respect for Joy. And when I first heard that she was in a cult the entire time she was on One Tree Hill, I was so shocked. Absolutely shocked. I always loved her character. I mean, I was an OG, OTH, diehard fan. I had to be at home when the clock struck 8 or 9, with the channel flipped to 29, which was WB4 and then eventually the CW. Could only get up to go pee at commercials, and then would have to add the DVD box sets, which were like $55 back then, to my Christmas list every single year, and then would spend my entire Christmas break binge watching the DVDs of all of the seasons that I had, staying up all night long, over and over and over again. So I was committed. And again, I will say this many times. Kids these days don't know how good they have it. All right? No commercials. Well, I don't know. Some apps, some streaming platforms are bringing back commercials, but still, no commercials. You've got a pause button. You've got endless amounts of things that you can watch on repeat constantly. I had to get up and change the DVD every couple hours. And let me tell you, that was not convenient, but worth every second. So yeah, years ago, while I was holding my pay till commercial and spending every ounce of extra money that I had on DVD box sets that I will literally own until the day that I die, our sweet Bethany Joy Lenz was in a cult. And that, like I said, shocked me. But listening to her narrate this story this book was such a treat because as an actress, she was able to narrate and voice each character distinctly. And I have never listened to an audio that has done that, as well as Chad Michael Murray, Paul Johansson, James Lafferty, sorry to think there for a second, Tyler Hilton, these people doing voice over for their parts that they spoke in conversations in the book. I was so impressed. So impressed. And it just distinctly added to the story and the way in which she shared it. It was gripping and well written, and it kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time, which was fantastic because I started listening to this book on my way home from North Carolina. Me and my niece and her mom decided to go on a trip to North Carolina. We were going to go on like a girls' weekend getaway, and then North Carolina suffered from hurricane damage this fall. And so we decided to keep our reservation, but to go and volunteer instead. It was an incredible trip. I highly recommend. Asheville will always have a special place in my heart. But we were coming back from that trip and we were going to be driving straight through all through the night, and I was driving first. And I was like, I've been wanting to listen to this book. It's nighttime. My niece was going to sleep in the back seat. And so me and her mom, one of my like nearest and dearest friends for majority of my life, were like, all right, let's listen to this story. Let's listen to this book. And so I binged that entire book on that drive home. And listening to it, listening to her share her experience in such a raw and vulnerable way, again, just made me respect her so much. She helped me to understand how she got pulled into that world because, you know, someone gets into a cult and you're like, seriously, what the fuck? Like, how does that happen? But, you know, the way it happened so slowly in her life and the way that it kind of pulled at those childhood wounds that she had and she carried around. It just gave it made it seem, it made me understand it, I guess. It made me understand it that much more. And the way that she told it, the way that she shared her story was very graceful, and her perspective was extremely humble and eye-opening. Like, this can literally happen to anyone. And she is so fortunate and so lucky that she got out and that she had the people around her that she did to support her through this time and through this season of her life, and how scary it had to have been to finally remove herself from it. But it also reminded me how little we truly know about people's lives, celebrities or not. We see glimpses on TV or social media, but we don't actually know their struggles. They're human. They deserve respect and space to navigate life in their own way. And especially with celebrities, they share so much of themselves for the sake of their art, for the sake of entertainment, for telling another character's story. But the person behind the script is still a living, breathing human experiencing a life of their own. And this just reminded me of that it's not fair for us to take our assessments of who we believe they are or should be and determine their worth. Just because we put them on a pedestal doesn't mean that they're supposed to live by our expectations and our standards. And we have to separate the person from the art and the reality from the fantasy for ourselves and for them. And hearing her share this part of her life and her experience was such a reminder of that. Yes, we saw her playing Haley James Scott on One Tree Hill every single week for 24 episodes a season, but we had no idea what Bethany Joy Lenz was going through behind closed doors. We had no idea how isolated and lonely she felt. We had no idea that she was suffering. And she still chose to show up and share her gift and share her art. And again, like I said, it just made me have a really profound respect for her. So, again, let's not put celebrities on pedestals. they are still human and they have a right to live their own life, as well as influencers or so-and-so you went to high school with that you see on social media in fucking Tahiti. Like, don't put them on a pedestal. Don't put them on a pedestal. And allow yourself to live your authentic life as well. Like, you don't have to put your highlight reel online just because you want people to think that your life is great when it's not. You don't have to be inauthentic just because you want to prove something to the outside world. And I'm not saying that that's what she had done, because she had a job to do. And I feel like she showed up and she did it really, really well. But it's beautiful now. I think this book is a really great representation of how you can take something shitty that you've been through and represent it in a authentic way and shed some light on it so that it can make an impact and really do some good in the world. So, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Just kidding. But seriously, love your actors, your musicians, and comedians, but don't put them on pedestals. They're not here to live up to impossible expectations. And again, appreciate their art, but remember, they're people just like you and me. All right. I gave this one 5 stars. I highly recommend it for any of my fellow OTH fans or anybody else who just wants to hear an interesting story about a chick's life and in a very interesting way. Because again, like I said, her being able to change the voice for the different characters that show up in her story was like, okay. Is this really your life, or are we listening to something fiction here? But yeah, great book. Highly recommend all 3 of these. Give them a listen or read if that's more your style. Like I said, I like to listen to memoirs because I like to listen to them tell their story in their voice. It just makes it feel more relatable or conversational, I guess. But all right, my friends, this wraps up our first episode of Book Club Fridays. And next time, we are definitely going to dive into some romance because smut girlies, get ready. I am here for it and I love it. So until then, keep reading, keep growing, and remember, your story is always worth telling. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Come say hello to me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Turn the Page Podcast. On the first episode, I said Turn the Page Pod. That is wrong. And that is okay. I am correcting it here and now. Turn the Page Podcast, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. All right. Love you. Bye.